Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Releasing Your Inner Dragon with Drake and Marie. I am one of your hosts, Maxwell Alexander Drake. I'm an award-winning novelist. I teach writing all over the world. If you're going to be at Comic-Con or Gen Con this year, I will be to both. Hopefully you'll come by and see me. As always, with me is my co-host, Marie.
Hi, my name is Marie Mullaney. I write epic fantasy and I run a fantasy world building channel on YouTube, and I will also be at Comic-Con. So if you are at Comic-Con, do come and see us both.
Very excited about that. So today we're going to talk about an interesting topic that may not apply to everybody, but I still think it's something to be aware of. The cool thing is I always get excited when me and Marie are kind of on opposite. I mean, we're never totally on opposite sides of anything, which is nice. But we got some differences in this one, so I really like it. We're going to talk about, which is funny considering the topic is working with another writer on a project, which me and Marie just did with Magic Fall. But before we get into it, as always, like the video, subscribe, share it, tell your friends. Like even if you don't subscribe to us and you just like it, you would be surprised at how much that helps us on the algorithms. So please, if we've been doing this for years now, we've got almost 100 episodes. We're really getting close to that. If you've been listening even half that long, you've got to be getting some value out of it. Throw a brother a bone, and give us a thumbs up, give us a share, tell people about it. We need all the help we can get. We are getting very close to that magical 1,000 downloads. I think it is a month or whatever we're getting close to. So let's get into it. And unfortunately, we actually got excited about it and talked about it probably too much before the podcast. So a lot of this we need to back up and actually kind of start all over. This came about because we actually were like, okay, what are we going to talk about today? And we went down where there's this topic and like, well, okay, that's probably 15, 20 minutes. And then there's this topic and I threw one out and all this. And it just organically led to this topic because it kind of does dovetail into some of the other things that we thought about talking about, and they'll probably worm their way in here. But I mean, we just finished a project together. We're still working on it, obviously, because we got 2 more novels in series. Plus, we're working on the audiobook version of book 1 now. For those that don't know, the book is on pre-sale. So you can go to Amazon and pick up the ebook version. You can go to starvingwriterstudio.com, click on the store. You can actually pre-order the autograph copy. It'll be autographed by both me and Marie. It doesn't ship out until after Comic-Con. It drops on the 20th, but we're not going to be here. And so until we get back from Comic-Con to ship them out, we won't be able to ship out orders. I would try to get them out right before we leave for Comic-Con. Maybe the day before I'll drop them in the mail, so you'll get them the day that they release. It just depends on how many pre-orders we get or whatever, but just be aware that it might be after. But you can definitely pick up copies of it right now if you would like. We kind of already talked about some things, so I don't know where you want to jump into this. So I'll just throw it to you. What do you think about this? What about what we talked, and where do you want to start with this?
So let's start with like the situation that brought about this conversation. So we were talking about things like how do you write luck into books, and how do you handle characters that have luck and that kind of thing. And then that led us on to discussing healing potions. I do not know how those two link up. I cannot remember at this point, but they did. And with healing potions, Drake brought up that he had a creative discussion with his other collaborative effort in the realm. And this was where in the realm you have healing potions, and and they restore the body completely, not from disease, no problems, nothing, complete restoration. And you said that one of your co-authors have had a problem with this and brought up some points. And I said, well, I would probably have had many of the same kind of questions, because a healing potion that restores you from all things. Yeah.
Right. So just to catch everybody up, basically, and we haven't gotten there yet. I mean, they're not even used they exist in the story, but no one has ever actually drank one yet. Because they, whatever. I'll get into it in a second. But basically, there are these things called healing elixirs. They're incredibly rare. I mean, when you're doing something like this, you have to build in limitations. And so that's the thing he was worried about. He wrote an email and he was like, hey, I've got a really big problem with these healing elixirs since they literally heal everything. Like, why? He's like, it causes a bunch of problems for me because, like, first of all, why even give characters damage if they can just heal it? Why would anybody even worry about death or dismemberment or any of that stuff? And dismemberment was different because I'm like, well, it doesn't regenerate. So if you lose a hand, it doesn't grow a hand back. It just seals that off and you're done. It heals the wound, basically.
Mine regenerates. So I go even further. For all that I object, I go even further.
So there's two things that I don't like. That there's two limits. There's one limitation that I always do in every story that I've ever created, anything that I do, because I think that if you don't have this limitation as a storyteller, you're actually hurting yourself, and that is resurrection. I do not allow resurrection. And my favorite story with that is when in the first couple of meetings with Sony, when they hired me as the lead writer for EverQuest Next, they were like, all right, how are you going to handle the resurrection,
Respawn.
whatever, respawn. That's the word I was looking for. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm not. And they were like, oh yeah, no, it's a part of the game. Character dies, they respawn at their last save spot. And how are you going to work? I'm like, no, that's not going to happen in the stories. That doesn't exist in the stories. And they were like, no, you have to. I'm like, no, I don't. And I'm not. And it's not going to happen. And none of that's going to be in the stories. Death is death. If you take death away from the story, you actually take the ultimate sacrifice away. You take the ultimate loss away. The ultimate sacrifice to me is the most important because that is such a huge emotional moment that somebody willingly dies for the betterment of others. And like, you take that away and then like, who cares? Yeah. Like, oh yeah, no, it's sort of like in D&D, like in my homebrew D&D, there is no hit points like there is in D&D. So the hit points you have are physical, and literally you can die from a crossbow bolt if you're first level or if you're 20th level, because like your neck only has this many hit points. You take it, like you can die. And in regular D&D, you get third level characters or whatever, and there's one guard that's got a crossbow and he's like, halt. The fighter's like, just let him shoot me. I'm fine. I don't care. Like it's maximum 6 points. Like whatever. I've got 82 hit points. I'm fine. And it's like, no one's gonna be like, the robber has a gun and you're like, yeah, just shoot me. I'm fine. I'll just shrug it off and then we'll kick your butt. Like, no, like he's got a gun. Like it can kill you. And so I just believe in storytelling. When you take that out, you really take out a huge portion of it. So there's that. And I also don't like regeneration for the same reason, because losing a hand is something that if it's done right, and I think they did it right in Wheel of Time, and I think they did it right it's one of the few things that I think they did right in Game of Thrones with Jaime Lannister.
That's because they were still working from the written material before they went off.
Well, I've never seen the show, so I'm only talking about the written material. So I'm only talking about George Martin. I'm not even talking about the show writers. It is something that you can do that is a huge sacrifice that the character now has to live with. And if you take that away, I feel the same way. If regeneration is also there, then they can't do that level of sacrifice, but still be alive. Like the ultimate sacrifice of dying for the betterment of others is great, but also, losing an arm for the betterment of others, you take that away if you have resurrection.
So what I do with my regeneration, and I mean, we can spend a little bit here and talk about it. So with my regeneration is the same way that I handle a lot of my healing. It depends on how long. Like if you are lucky and you have actually you have 3 priests, because you need 3 priests working together to regenerate somebody's limb, right? And they catch you before your body has adjusted to the loss, they can regenerate your arm. So it's a kind of a luck you would need. You know, because
well,
my big concern is always with items, because items
right.
can be carried with you.
Well, before we get into the item side of it, when I'm teaching my magic class on how to build better magic systems for fantasy worlds, what I really talk about is different layers of magic that you create. So one is abilities. What can magic do? And those are the fun things. You know, magic can do this and magic can do that, and how it works and everything like that. Everybody does that. Most people do limitations, which we just talked about too. Magic in my world can't resurrect or regenerate. In yours, I don't think it can resurrect. I think it's just regeneration, and only if there's whatever.
If you're dead, if you're like actually dead, you're dead. Cheers.
Right. But you have to create limitations, and that's exactly what they are. Limitations are things that magic cannot do. Like, it doesn't matter. You've set these. They are hard rules. They can't be broken ever. And when you do set up a rule in your fantasy, and it's just any aspect of world building that can't happen, if you really have to have the most amazing reason to break that rule. And you really have, really, in my mind, the only way you can break a rule that can't be broken is if in the beginning you were like, I'm going to tell people this rule can't be broken, but I am going to break it in this aspect here, and this is why I'm going to break it and how it's going to be broken and why it's going to be believable it's broken. I think you have to do that kind of, which means you didn't actually set up a limitation. You set up a fake limitation that you presented to the world, but wasn't a real limitation. So when I'm talking about limitations, I'm talking about you've created limitations that, you know, as the creator god of this world, is a hardcore limitation. Then you want the ability to take away magic. So like Harry Potter, lose your wand, lose your magic. It's that simple. Mistborn, don't have any metal to burn inside of you, no magic. So you want that. You want the ability to take magic away. And then that's really, I mean, as long as you have those three things, you have the ability, because most of his problems, so my other writer in the realm, most of his problems were solved by me saying, yeah, but you can organically make sure that in the story you take that away. You know, like with the elixirs, it was like, oh, look, I accidentally fell and broke it. Oh, darn, I really could have used that. Oh, wait, it was right here. What happened to it? I know I had one. Like, oh, I wonder if that thief stole it in the last chapter. Like, well, and even like, so one of the things that's very important to me as a fantasy writer is what I call Schrodinger's cat. Mm-hmm. So just like in Schrodinger's cat, cat's in the box, it's both alive and dead. And you don't know which until you look in it. A lot of the stuff that I create, I leave in Schrodinger's cat mode. Now, I can assume that it's going to be this way. So like with elixirs, I assume it can heal anything. However, I already know it can't heal everything because we already have, and that's how we know it can't regenerate, is because one of the main characters has a gimp leg that he hurt when he was like 14. Obviously, it had healed up, and even though they have access to healing elixirs now, that shows you that, well, it doesn't matter. It had already healed this way. It's not going to fix that issue. And so, you know, that shows that limitation there. But I don't like defining anything until it absolutely has to be defined within the story. I can go, yeah, it's probably going to be this way, or I'm pretty sure it's going to be this way, or I think it's going to be this way. But until we get to the point where it's like, oh yeah, no, we have to define it now, it actually be used in the story, I don't want to say healing elixirs are always like this. I want to keep it in that kind of ambiguous mode, because as soon as you define it, you are now stuck with that. And if something comes along, a situation comes along where you're like, oh man, I really wish I wouldn't have done it that way. So I'm very, very, very picky on hardcore defining things. And that's really what started this discussion. And so that's where I want to go. We'll get into items with this, but that's kind of where I wanted this discussion to go, because we had this. Because the funny thing is this is kind of where this is the genesis of why I want to talk about this podcast. Is I said somebody has to be in charge. And in the realm, I'm absolutely in charge. And so by the end of that discussion, I said, well, I answered all their questions. They didn't have any other, they weren't like, well, I still don't understand, or I still disagree, or whatever. We didn't have that. But I did end it in two ways. I said, one, you're just gonna have to trust me on some of this stuff. Some of this stuff, ask me, always make me justify my reasons if you don't know it. But there may be some things that I say, just trust me, because I'm gonna leave it in Schrodinger's cat mode. I'm gonna leave it that both answers could be true. And until we get to the spot in the story that demands that I pick an option, we're gonna do that. And when I said that, you said that would absolutely not work with me. And I said, actually, that is literally the relationship we had with Magic Fall. The only difference is I was my realm writers team and you were Drake in Magic Fall. And I think it took you a second to go, wait a minute, and have to actually think about that.
So yes, but so my response to that was, so first, we didn't discuss the Schrodinger's cat, which is a really cute way of looking at items, and I agree with. I do a lot of world building like that, where I'm like, I'll decide if I ever get there. But regardless, where I disagreed was with the words in charge, because to my mind, yes, somebody needs to take the lead. Somebody needs to be pushing the project and taking the lead on the world building and making sure that everything fits together. But for me, in charge means that if it comes to a disagreement, my point of view takes precedence, right? That's what being in charge means. And well, firstly, so I didn't see my role in Magic Fall as such. When we had disagreements, we brought them to the table along with, like, this is what I want to do, this is why I don't agree, this is why or this is why I don't agree with what you're doing here. Let's talk about it and then reach a consensus. And that's what we did.
And that is what we did.
Yeah, there was no point where we were like, this,
Right.
And I guess what wouldn't work for me is if I was not in the lead and I asked a question and the answer was trust me, and I'm like, trust you because it's not defined yet? Fine. Trust you because you're not giving me the information? Oh, hell no.
Of course. And I don't operate, and that's not a good way to have a relationship with somebody. But when you said that, my response was, but we did have that relationship, even though you may not have felt it. Because the reality is, and it's the same with the realm. So my relationship with you and what we did with Magic Fall has been the exact same thing with the realm. And we've been working with the realm since 2019, minus the year and a half or so that I lost from cancer, where I'm in charge, in the lead, whatever words you want to use. I don't worry about the word that's used. I worry about the meaning of what we mean by the word. So for me, I just say in charge. If you want to use a different word, it doesn't matter to me, because they both mean the same thing at the end of the day. Me and you have a great relationship. Me and the guys have a great relationship. I mean, they were both my proteges for years. They've tutored under me. I've edited them. I beat the crap out of them, writing wise. They both were fans of mine before we even started this process. So like, there's a lot of built-in trust and a lot of built-in, and plus we've become best friends, just like me and you. I feel like we've become really great friends. So there's a mutual, not just respect, but there's also a mutual admiration and a mutual love and a mutual, kinship that transcends a lot of that. And I think that's important for a relationship. But the reality is, with the guys with the realm, if it came to push comes to shove, and they know this, I've made this very, very apparent. We didn't really talk about this because I was playing the subordinate role. So it doesn't matter whether you don't need to actually know. If I just submit to you, you don't have to know that you're dominating me. But with them, since I was in charge, I was like, look, if push comes to shove and we can't come to a consensus, because in my opinion, when you have a relationship and you can't come to a consensus and no one's in charge, the only option you have is to stop working, to break, divorce, if we just go use that word from a relationship standpoint. So I always knew that I was the subordinate in the Magic Fall relationship. So yeah, I'm going to fight tooth and nail. I'm going to, talk about why I believe something is right or something is wrong or whatever. But I also knew that if it ever came to the point where we could not reach that consensus, I would have taken a step back. I would have, because the only other option is animosity, hate, and ultimately the failure of the project. So with the guys in the realm, I made that apparent up front. Like, look, if we come to it and we cannot, because this was like, you have to agree to this before we start. I'm not going to go on this 7-year journey with you. And then 3 years down the road, hurt one of your feelings because you don't get your way. And then you bail. Like, you have to understand that if it comes to that, you're agreeing right now that, and they know me and you know me and I know you and I know them, and none of us are that personality. None of us are that, because we all have met those guys, especially in the arts industry, where they're like, my way, my way, my way, my way. It's all my way. And I don't care about your way. None of us, not you, not me, not the guys with the realm. None of us have that attitude. We're all, look, we can work this out. We can figure it out. Let's keep digging. Let's keep digging until we come up with a solution that makes all of us happy. And so that is, I think, the reason why all of our relationships work so well together from a creative standpoint, because we do have that ability to not worry about personal artistic pride, but worry about project artistic pride. But I think it's important to also realize that when push comes to shove, it's either abandon the project or somebody swallows and takes a step back. And I always knew that if we had ever gotten to that point, that was going to be me in the Magic Fall. It was your original idea. It was, it's not that I feel that way, because I feel like it's us now. It is our project. I feel just as equal with you, but I still feel that even going forward, if we ever got to the point where we were completely butting heads, in my mind, you're still in charge. And so I'm just the employee here, and I'll fight tooth and nail for what I feel is right. But at the end of the day, if I can't convince you, then fine. I've done my job. I did everything I could to try. And now let's just move forward, because again, if you don't, I think it destroys the project. It destroys our relationship. It destroys the project. It destroys everything. Why would I ever want that to happen over my opinion on one little tiny aspect of a story that we're working on? And so that's the same way with them. It's just that, again, I'm in charge of the realm.
So I guess I don't know, maybe my take on it is more based on our kind of consensus-driven attitude up here in the North. Because even in a leadership position here, the idea is to reach consensus.
Mm-hmm.
And you keep talking until you reach consensus. Now, sometimes that leads to people giving up because they're like, okay, I'm done talking. I come to consensus.
and that's literally them doing exactly what I just said. They're deferring.
Yeah. But most of the time, you can reach consensus if you discuss things like a grown up. And not
100%.
like a child in a playground.
And that's where it becomes so difficult, and why you see so many bands break up and so many, artists break up and everything like that. Because when you're in a business environment, it's one side of the brain. But when you're in an artistic environment, it becomes much more subjective. And I think it's harder for people to understand that your idea, as much as you think it's awesome, is subjective. There is no right answer. There is no wrong answer. But again, for me, it's more important to me to continue the relationship and continue the project. Now, obviously, let's say we had this dynamic, and I've said this before, I worked for Fox for like 3 days.
Yeah.
And I walked, because I knew that the person that I was dealing with was not going to he definitely had that. No, we're going to do this my way. I don't even want to hear why you think my way is wrong. I don't want to hear it. This is the way we're doing it because I think it's the right way. Shut your mouth and do what I'm telling you to do. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, as much as I'd love to work for this company, I'm out. And again, it wasn't Fox directly. It was a production that was going to sell to Fox, and they ended up not selling to Fox. So technically, I guess I never really worked for Fox, but I worked for a project that had a chance to sell to Fox. I guess I should say it that way. I don't want Fox coming after me and going, we never hired you. Because technically they didn't. But they also didn't hire the guy that I walked out on. So it's not that I won't do that. Obviously, me and you have a relationship where, again, I love that you were like, I didn't feel like we had that relationship because we always came to consensus. I'm like, yeah, that's the best relationship to have. And I feel like it's mostly the same with the realm. The problem with the realm is it is so massive that like Magic Fall is a very simple story in the grand scheme of things. It's wonderful and it's dynamic and it's awesome, but it isn't 20 novels with 8 POV characters and massive parallel story arcs that sometimes don't even touch. And so there's so much that I have in my head that I'm pretty sure this is the way this is going to work out. And so because I have that, when something comes along in one of their stories or in one of the things we're working on, I can put it through the filter of, here's my idea of the entire thing. What is this going to ripple? What's the ripple effect of this if we do this way? And then, unfortunately, if I go, that I can see where this is going to cause nothing but problems with the story, I can say, yeah, no, we're not doing it that way. And now the difference is that I am never the type of person who just says no. I say, okay, no, and here's why. And then I show them that, and they're like, I didn't even think about that. I'm like, well, how could you? It's in my brain. Like there's so much of the story that I just haven't been able to get. I mean, we got about 400,000 words of backstory now written, and there's probably going to be another 400,000 more before it's all said and done. And all that's rambling around inside my brain. So there's just some things that they just don't have access to yet because we just haven't had time to have the discussion, to put it on paper, to go down that. So yeah, I mean, basically, if you're going to be working with another creative, I think that attitude of mutual respect and all of that is important. But I do believe that somebody has to know that I'm either in charge or that and then everybody else needs to know that they're the subordinate. And then at the end of the day, unless it's something, again, I walked off that production because I'm like, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. I'm not going to put my name on this. That actually hurts me.
And I guess that's the part that I would be cautious about with the words in charge, just because it does carry the weight of that. There are people who use I'm in charge as a bully stick to, basically be like, I'm in charge. Here's your portion of the plot that you're going to write. Go write that.
Yep. And that's the beautiful thing about this system, because it is both sides. One, if you're in charge and you're a jerk face, I walk, and then you get nothing. But two, it means that if you're in charge and you know that if you're a jerk face, I walk, and you want to keep me, it also means that you are more likely, if you're smart, you're more likely to not be a jerk face. So I think it actually does. I mean, if somebody's going to be a jerk face, then they're going to be a jerk face. Don't work with them. Like, learn that early, get out of the project. I mean, 3 days. And I knew it on day one, but I was like, but I mean, a television show with a big budget. And so I stuck with it for an extra 2 days because big money and big opportunity, and lead me to eventually running my own show one day if this one is a success, and all those other things that come along with it. So I knew day one that I wasn't going to make it, but I just was being stubborn and like, no, you're going to stick it out, and this is too important, and just swallow your pride. And then day 3, I'm like, yeah, no, this is going to hurt my career, or not my career. It would have hurt my brand.
Yeah.
My fans trust me because I don't cut corners. It's always about the reader and the fan. I don't care about anything else but the reader and the fan's enjoyment. They're the only things that matter to me. And so as long as I stay loyal to that, and if I'm looking at the story going, this story sucks, this is offensive from a story standpoint, not offensive from a politically correct standpoint, but I'm saying this is not going to make the audience giddy over this. And we've also, I mean, oh, probably shouldn't even talk about this, but we started watching Dungeons and Dragons last night. Because everyone's like, oh no, it's a fun movie. I got 45 minutes into it and I was like, we still have an hour and 10 minutes to go on this. Now I'm good. And I don't ever stop watching movies. I mean, it was so, there was nothing offensive about it from some of the other things that offend me now in today's writing. The thing that was offensive was just poor, right? It was 45 minutes of exposition. It literally was, hey, so we're going to do this because we need to do this because, you know, this is important to me and that's important to me. And I really like this person. And like, show me you like them. Don't tell me you like them. Like, what are you doing? And so it was just, you know, it's like, yeah, no, I was going to fight that mage, but she was too powerful. You could show that. You can literally show me you losing to the mage. You don't have to tell me, oh, I'd love to fight her, but she's too powerful. Again, it was just that for 45 minutes. And so that's what I mean by offensive. It's such terrible writing and character development and motivation development. And see, I know that isn't going to impress fans. And so, and make them happy. And so I would walk on that. Or I'd fight tooth and nail to get it, you know, to get them to see my way and change it to like, yeah, let's not do a crappy voiceover. Let's actually write a scene that shows this to the audience. So yeah, I'm kind of went on a tangent there, but that's really what it is for me. It's about.
Have you watched Superman and Lois yet?
Again, I told you I started it when it first came out, and just yes, it was awesome. I enjoyed it until I stopped watching it.
It is so good. It is so good.
I watched okay. So in the last 2.5 years since before cancer, I've watched 2.5 movies, and they were all in the last 7 days. And I watched 1 season of a show that was amazing. And I also watched that in the last 7 days. So for 2.5 years, I didn't watch anything. Other than what I had to watch. Like we did watch the first 2 episodes of Velma. I don't count that because I was literally hate watching it. I watched the first 2 episodes of
my point. Watch the shows I recommend to you and you'll watch some good shows.
Well, that's the problem is that at least when I'm hate watching, I'm doing it because I have to do it for work. When I'm trying to watch something for pleasure, I'm just watching it for pleasure, and I don't have time right now for pleasure. But I finally, you know, I did get all my deadlines. I got everything out. I got 3 books coming out in July. They're all, as a matter of fact, I just found out the tracking numbers today. So the books are actually en route. They should be here first part of next week. So plenty of time for Comic-Con. We're still getting marketing stuff done and everything like that has to get to printers. And so we have everything for Comic-Con. But like I was so burnt after those 3 months of just cramming that, you know, half my family was gone. So me and my youngest, he had never seen Fight Club. And I was like, oh, we're going to watch that. And then that led me to like, we need to watch the number 23, which is kind of in that same vein. I think it has a weak ending, but it's still good up to that point. I think it's one of Jim Carrey's best movies. It's not a comedy at all. It's a very dark psycho thriller.
I remember 23.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love the number 23. So he had never seen that. And then I did watch a season. It's only 6 episodes, and you got to have a taste for this. But I watched season 3 of Afterlife. It's Ricky Gervais's Netflix series. Ricky Gervais is an amazing writer. And it is so sad and so heart-wrenching. And if you don't know the plot, basically the plot is this guy was married to the love of his life, and then when she's in her mid-40s or whatever, she dies of cancer. And the show is about him after she died. And yes, this is close to me because of the whole cancer scare and all of that, but Gervais is an amazing writer. This is one of his best things he's ever written. The last couple episodes, I think it was like, I'm done with this show, so let me just tie everything up into pretty bows. And he literally just went through in 2 episodes, and every single plot arc that was out there. It was like, hey, remember this guy that was always lonely? Look, I just gave him a girlfriend. He's happy now. Hey, remember this? Oh, look, I just gave him this. He's happy now. Oh, look, this woman, I gave her this. She's happy now. Like, and it was completely unearned. That was the problem, is
Yes.
that, and that's one of the things we were going to talk about today too, was making sure your characters earn stuff.
Things.
So that was the complaint that I have about the ending of Afterlife.
Yeah.
But from a human standpoint, just understanding the loss of the relation. And one of the funniest things, and I don't want to set you off because this is your trigger, he's a hardcore atheist. And man, he really did some heartfelt scenes of why Christianity or religion in general is important to humanity. And he is just like you when it comes to religion. So the fact that he wrote those in, I was impressed. And I won't spoil it for anybody who wants to watch it, because they are tear-jerking, beautifully written scenes.
I understand why people gravitate towards religion. I get it. I do get it. My problem isn't people needing to believe in the human spirit or a greater being or anything like that. Like, I personally don't, but that's me. Like, I understand that that's not the general norm. Like, I don't have any need to believe in a greater spirit. I'm fine. I'm at peace with the fact that I didn't exist for X billion years, and I won't exist for however long the universe exists after I'm dead. Like, these things are just, it is what it is. But
I'm just convinced that the universe is going to end when I die.
Well, for me, obviously it is, because I'm no longer going to be in it. It's going to be done. It's just over, right? But but regardless, my problem isn't with people needing that faith. My problem is with the way in which religions are used to bludgeon power. It is not a law because we all think it's a law. It is a law because I have it on the authority of God.
Right.
That is my problem.
No, anyway, and I get it. I didn't want to turn this. I don't want to turn this into a thing of religion. I'm just saying he did a beautiful job, and it shocked me that he went down those paths because of the fact that I know how and so that's just a great thing of being a writer, is understanding that your belief doesn't mean anything. It's about the human spirit belief. It's about us collectively as a species, because you're writing for them. And so that just, again, shows how amazing Gervais is as a writer, because he isn't writing his own personal agenda into it. He's writing, man, this affects people, and religion affects a lot of people, and let me cater to that aspect of it, instead of, I hate all religious people, so I'm only going to write that religious people suck.
Yeah,
because that's really, and again, we talked about this before, and I don't want to get into this as it, but that is where I see so much of the problem with where they're going with stories today, is that they're actually writing their agenda. I hate religion, so I'm going to write a story that just talks about how horrible religion is, and that's all I'm going to talk about.
I'm going to say it again. You watch shows that I don't say that those shows don't exist, but you watch exclusively those shows.
I do.
And that is why you hate so much, because you're like, everything sucks. I'm like, but you never watch the stuff I tell you to watch.
Yeah, because last night we had two options. We could have watched the one movie that I want to see this year, or last year, which was Renfield, or we could watch Dungeons and Dragons. And my family was like, well, let's do D&D. That'll be a lighthearted movie. But so Renfield is still on the table, and I'm really looking forward to that movie.
So I just want to briefly diverge into a question of giving people happy endings and not giving people happy endings and so on. I want to briefly talk about Ted Lasso. Now, I know that you haven't watched it.
Right.
And I've recommended it. So I'm recommending it to everybody out there as well. Go watch Ted Lasso. It is worth your week of free subscription to Apple TV, because they give you a week free. All 3 seasons are there. You can binge all 3 in a week.
You're not the only person that said good things about it.
So the thing about Ted Lasso is that their conflict and their resolution is like nothing I have ever seen in my life. The grown-up characters are grown-ups. Like, they open their mouths and talk to each other about their problems.
That's nice.
They resolve issues with words. They react like real people.
That's actually something we've discussed on this channel, where we've talked about the trope of, if they just talk to each other, this whole problem wouldn't have happened. And I think that is a trope that's leaned on way, 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 way too much.
Yeah. And you're like you. So I was watching parts of Ted Lasso, and I'm like, okay, I can see drama is coming. Like, I can, and I'm like, almost like, I wish they wouldn't have this drama. And then the drama doesn't come, because it's like, oh, actually, this is just stupid drama. Like, I'm just gonna let it go. I'm like, oh my God, you're just gonna let it go? How novel.
See, and that's the opposite of like Workaholics and shows like that. Well, in the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia or whatever. And that's what's called anxiety comedy, where they don't rely on the trope of, oh, if she would just tell him, or if he would just tell, his friend or whatever. They are on the trope of, this person's about to do something stupid. They know it's stupid and they're going to do it anyway. And it's going to cause all sorts of trouble. And then they just do it. And so that's where that anxiety. And so, like, my oldest son can't take anxiety plot devices. So he can't watch Workaholics with me. Like, he can't. He gets so, I'm like, they're fake characters. It's a TV show. And he's like, like, why would they sit on their roof smoking weed and, throwing balloons filled with pee at passing cars? Like, because that's the joke. Like, of course they're going to get their butts kicked. Someone is going to stop and do something horrible to them because they're doing this. That's the point. But he's just like, why would they break into their own office that they work for and, to hold a party at night, knowing that they're not going to get away with this? And I'm like, yeah, no, they're not. And so,
I'm he can't take that. I'm also like, I can't with that.
And I'm not a huge fan of it. I did kind of enjoy the first, at least several seasons of Workaholics, but eventually it got old. It's Always Sunny has never gotten old. But the difference is, I think, is that they do the Bugs Bunny kind of thing, where there's really no, like, there's no ramifications. Like, they get arrested so many times because they're literally, like, they kidnap people, or they do all sorts. And then the next episode, it just you get
shot with a shotgun, and your hair stands upright, and then the next scene you're fine.
Right, exactly. So I think that's why It's Always Sunny works so well, because even though they do have contiguous stories and contiguous story arc characters, like, they would all be in prison. Everyone will be in federal prison with the stuff that they've done in that show, or dead. But I think that's the difference, and why It's Always Sunny has never bothered me.
But I mean, I really I loved that about Ted Lasso. Like, in the first episode, it's stuff like this. So it's, I don't know if you know the premise. It is an American college football coach. Okay, so not like NFL league, college. All right,
but American football.
American football.
Right.
American football. Okay, that gets hired by a Premier League soccer team in England. And I'm saying soccer for your sake,
right.
Here we call it football, but a soccer team back in England. And now the Premier League is like, it is big money. It is like the NFL. Okay. And he gets hired he gets hired to coach them. Okay. Now, in the first episode, you learn that he gets hired to coach them because the original owner of the soccer team got divorced from his wife. His wife got the club in the divorce settlement. And she is on a vengeance mission. She wants to wreck her ex's life by destroying the one thing he loves most. So she loves the fact that Ted knows nothing about soccer, right? He doesn't understand the offside rule. He doesn't know anything. Okay. So that's fantastic. All right.
And that plot device may seem fantastical, but when I was in high school, one of my friends saw an ad for a brand new Porsche, the sports version, the Carrera, the whatever they're called, begins with a C. $5. It was on sale. So he called them up and they were like, "Is this serious?" And she's like, "Yep, it is absolutely serious. You come with $5, you get the car. Brand new. It only had like 1,000 miles on it. And it literally was that. The car was in her name. She had caught the dude cheating on her, and she sold his brand new Porsche for $5 to a 16-year-old kid in high school who got a Porsche for $5.
So this kind of plot device goes back in the 12th century. John Lackland's daughter was married to Llewellyn, Prince of Wales, and she was about 15 or so. He was about 30, as it went in those days. And she caught him in bed with another woman. And under Welsh law, like, she had more protections than she would have under English law. So she used that Welsh law. She dragged his bed out of his castle and burnt it in his courtyard.
Hell hath no fury.
So,
it's a real thing.
It's a thing. Okay. So
women are terrifying.
I could understand that motivation. I got it. I was like, okay, cool. It's hysterically funny, and I'm assuming stuff's gonna come, and stuff does come out of it. Like, she has a whole arc that she goes through as well, right? So this dude pitches up, and Ted, what I loved about Ted was he was so polite and so optimistic, and what he overcomes everything by just being nice. Like, genuinely, deep from his heart, nice. He is a good guy. Now, he's got issues that he's struggling with, plenty of them, but he works through issues. He talks to people like they're grown-ups. Like, he has these little G.I. Joe dolls that he gives people. Like, everybody's tiny little plastic figures. Okay. So he gives them, it's like, this will look after you and so on. My son gave these to me to look after me and so on. And then he gives them to one of the Nigerian players, right? And the Nigerian player's like, yeah, look, I don't have that much of an attachment to the United States military, so I'm gonna decline your gift of a soldier. And Ted's like, oh, right, colonialism. And the Nigerian's like, yeah. And Ted's like, oh, okay. And that's it. And they move on. Because, different symbols mean different things to people, and it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I will watch it eventually. I just haven't had a lot of time.
It was just so, and the funniest thing was when he greets his boss for the first time, and she's like something about like my father was my mother or something like that, and he's like, if that's a joke, it's hysterical. And then he's like, if it's not, I can't wait to unpack that with you. It's just...
Yeah. I mean, good writing. And I didn't mean for this to turn into, and I don't think you did either, a show about shows. But the only show that's come out, the only TV show that's come out in the last decade or so that had an ending that really impressed me was The Good Place. And I think the most amazing thing about that was, in the last season, like 4 episodes from the end, they do a season finale, and you're like, wow, the best ever. And then you're like, wait a minute, they still have 3 episodes left. Oh no, don't do that. You will absolutely, there's no way you're gonna ruin it. And then the next episode comes and you're like, oh wow, that was a great season finale. It's so much better. Like, I absolutely built on it 100%. But don't do the next 2 episodes. And then the next one is even better. And then the last one is absolutely breathtaking and how it all ties up. So it literally ends 4 different times in 4 different ways. But I mean, it continues. The story continues. And those writers outdid themselves by every metric available. It was fantastic. So if you haven't seen The Good Place, that's another one that is a must watch.
I would highly recommend Ted Lasso. It's got no fantasy. It's got no it doesn't even have that much soccer in it. but it is so good.
Right.
I enjoyed it so much. The way they dealt with everything, the way they dealt with young men growing up inside of a high performance environment, because I mean there's a whole bunch of men on a soccer team in a locker room, some of them older on the point of retirement, some of them young and starting and full of themselves and their ego, and it's just really well done.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, and we've talked about it offline, and I definitely, it's on my list. Just whenever I get time to just sit down and binge for a week or so, which doesn't look like it's going to happen in the next 3 months at least. But at some point, and I'm actually shocked that I even spent as much time as I did. But anyway, to bring this back and to kind of wrap it up, you went down this path because it's about characters earning what they get. And so even though Afterlife was as well written as it was, the last couple episodes are weak because of the fact that and I don't know anything about Gervais as far as the behind the scenes of this. I don't have access to anyone in that, area. So I don't know if he was like, oh yeah, no, we're definitely doing a season 4, season 5 or whatever. And then all of a sudden halfway through season 3 was like, you know what? I'm going to tie this one up. I'm done. And it doesn't end insultingly, like everything ties up. It's just that no one earns anything. They're just all like, oh, that's really nice. Oh, I'm glad that worked out for them because I've been rooting for them for 3 seasons or whatever. So it gave you the satisfaction of closure, but they didn't earn it. And so, and also, each season was only 6 episodes long. So that also plays into what, how much time you have and everything like that. So you just have to think about all this stuff, and your characters have to earn what they get. It's the only way to really make audiences ecstatic by what you're doing. And then to bring it back to the very beginning, if you are working with others, it can be done. It just has to be, you have to have a mutual respect, a mutual love, a mutual companionship, and the desire to work through. So like, just to put a bow on that one, you would have a problem with something that I had suggested, or I would have a problem with something that you had suggested. It was here's the problem that I have, and here's a solution that I think would fix it. Sometimes that was, oh, wow, I didn't even see that problem. I do like your solution. Yes, I think you thought this through. Let's do that. Sometimes it was, oh, wow, I didn't see the problem. Your solution also causes problems, and here's them. And I would, the other person would be like, oh, you're right. Well, what, and then we would just bounce it back and forth until it was there. So if you can go into it, and me and the Realm guys have the same relationship. And so if you can go into it understanding that you're never going to agree on everything, that's not the way this works, but you can find agreement. If you're working with other authors, it really comes down to the relationship you have with them and the openness and honesty that you have up front. Just understand that you're going to have arguments, but they don't need to be drag out fights. They just need to be opportunities to find better solutions. And I think if both parties come into it with that you'll really get to that point. And then, we talked about some stuff about making sure your characters earn it, to make sure that the reader appreciates it. As I always say, the reader's the only thing that's real. So they're the only thing that matters that you're trying to please. So yeah, so this was kind of a meandering episode, but hopefully, I think everything we discussed was interesting. So hopefully you got something out of it. As always, as we say, if you got anything out of this, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, spread the word, share the links, do the things.
Yeah, if you've got something you're struggling with in your writing, please do drop a comment down below. Let us talk about it.
That is the other thing. releasingyourinnerdragon at gmail.com. We are always looking for things to talk about. We've been doing this for now 2 years. Sometimes we, like today, we were like, what are we going to talk about? And we were just kicking around some ideas, and we ended up just kind of chasing a bunch of rabbits. We're here for you guys. So let us know, like actually send us an email and say, you know what, I'd really like to know, even if it's something we've already discussed. If somebody asks for something, then that means obviously they want more of that thing, or, maybe they didn't hear it, but whatever, but, we'll still go down that path. So please reach out to us. We do want this show to be, for you guys. So that's it.
Yep. and we will see you soon for another one.